October 20th, 2025, 0000 hours, the Caribbean Sea. The water was black, silent, deadly. 5 ghost ships cut through the darkness, running without lights, without names, without mercy. Each vessel flew humanitarian flags, lies painted on steel. Each transmitted false transponder IDs that led nowhere. They weren't just smuggling drugs. They were operating floating chemical factories worth over $10 billion, synthesizing death on an industrial scale while hidden in plain sight across international waters. Then the hunters arrived. A P-8 Poseidon surveillance aircraft tore through the clouds above, its infrared sensors painting the ocean in cold light. What it revealed would trigger the largest maritime drug operation in American history. A full-scale war between the US Navy, the DEA, and a narcotics empire that had evolved far beyond anything law enforcement had ever seen. Within minutes, the call went out. From Quantico to Key West, from the Drug Enforcement Administration to the Fifth Fleet, Operation Blue Current was active. The USS Hamilton, a Legend-class cutter, altered course and roared toward the coordinates. Engines screaming, deck guns loaded. A joint task force of Navy SEALs and DEA agents prepared to intercept. No one spoke of risk, only precision, because that night the line between crime and war would disappear forever. The empire beneath the waves. For months, the signs had been impossible to ignore. Shipping patterns that defied logic. Cargo manifests with perfect numbers but impossible weights. Ghost freighters sailing under shell company names. Never docking, never unloading, always moving. DEA analysts at Quantico traced the routes obsessively. Maracaibo, Barranquilla, Panama. Dozens of vessels registered to companies that didn't exist, operated by crews with no history, carrying cargo that never was delivered. One question echoed through the command floor like a death knell. Where was the product coming from? The answer, when it finally emerged from encrypted communications, was terrifying. Project Azure Reef. Not a drug route, not a smuggling operation. A network of ocean-based production platforms capable of synthesizing methamphetamine and fentanyl precursors on site. Floating chemical factories powered by lithium reactors, stabilized by technology traced directly back to Shenzhen, China. Each platform was engineered with military precision, protected by private security forces armed with heavy machine guns. They weren't just smugglers anymore. They were engineers building a new kind of empire, one that operated beyond borders, beyond jurisdiction, beyond the reach of traditional law enforcement. By mid-October, intelligence converged like a closing fist. Satellite scans, human assets, intercepted calls, all pointing to one moment. A convoy departing Venezuelan waters, escorted by armed security boats, heading north into the Caribbean corridor. The Pentagon issued authorization. Joint Command, US Navy and DEA. Mission parameters: intercept, seize, dismantle. There would be no way out. First contact, when shadows opened fire. 0247, 60 nautical miles off Cartagena. Radar contact confirmed. 5 vessels moving in tight formation, speed 12 knots, heading north by northwest. No response to radio hails, no navigation lights, only silence and the hum of engines cutting through dark water. On the bridge of the USS Hamilton, Commander Dale Spencer stood over the combat display, his face illuminated by the glow of tactical screens. Targets confirmed, his executive officer reported. Formation holding steady. Spencer nodded once. Shadow 6, prepare for boarding. 2 RIB-4 assault boats dropped into the water, their dark hulls slicing through waves. Above them, an MH-60 Romeo Seahawk circled wide, rotors beating the humid air like a war drum. Higher still, a P-8 Poseidon scanned for heat signatures, and far above, at 20,000 feet, an MQ-9 Reaper locked its sensors, circling like a bird of prey. Then chaos erupted. One of the cartel ships opened fire. Red tracers arced through the night, DSHK heavy machine guns spitting from the deck in desperate bursts. "Contact!" the radio snapped. Alarms blared across the Hamilton's bridge. Commander Spencer's voice cut through the noise, cold and precise. "Deck guns, engage. Minimal lethal response. We take them alive." The Mark 110 57mm gun roared from the Hamilton's bow. Short, surgical bursts that slammed into the cartel's gun mounts with pinpoint accuracy. Each round found its mark. The enemy fire ceased within seconds. The gun crews neutralized or scattered. But the ocean had other plans. A second ship detonated in a massive white flash that split the horizon. Chemical drums ignited, painting the sky in otherworldly blue fire. On the bridge, Spencer steadied his voice even as the shockwave rolled across the water. "All units, advance, secure the site." The Seahawk banked low, its GAU-21 door gun spitting bursts that ripped through the deck of the nearest vessel. DEA agents from Shadow 6 fast-broke down through smoke and twisted metal, landing amid chaos. They moved with lethal efficiency, cutting through hatches, subduing crew members, securing compartments. Below deck, the discovery stunned even the veterans. Industrial chemical drums labeled in Mandarin, lithium reactors built for long-duration synthesis, stacks of false shipping documents stamped with Venezuelan customs seals, modular production equipment that belonged in a state-licensed facility, not a criminal enterprise. "This isn't street chemistry," one agent muttered through his respirator, staring at the sophisticated machinery. "This is state engineering." At that moment, one ship broke formation. Its engines roared to life, trailing black smoke as it throttled desperately toward Venezuelan territorial waters. "Target attempting escape," came the call from the Tactical Operations Center. From 10,000 feet above, the MQ-9 Reaper adjusted course. Its laser designator locked on. One click later, a Hellfire missile screamed down through the darkness. Impact. A column of fire rose into the sky. The fleeing vessel vanished in a boiling cloud of steam and burning fuel. Silence followed. No more radar contacts. No return fire. Only the crackle of burning oil and the steady hum of the Hamilton's engines. By dawn, the Caribbean was still again. 5 ships destroyed or captured. Hundreds of chemical barrels recovered. 27 arrests made. And beneath it all, the first hard evidence that America's war on drugs had crossed into something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The land war, raids on the empire's heart. The sea battle was only half the war. While sailors and agents secured the burning wreckage in the Caribbean, another operation was already moving, not on water, but on land. In Bogota, encrypted orders flashed through the DEA's Joint Command Network. Coordinates, timestamps, go codes. Within minutes, Colombian National Police and DEA field teams moved in perfect synchronization. Targets, Barranquilla and Cartagena, 2 of the cartel's primary industrial hubs. Each location was shielded by elaborate civilian fronts, import firms, fuel depots, charity warehouses, places designed to hide in plain sight. 0800 hours. Barranquilla and Cartagena. The raids began. Helicopters thundered over the coast. Armored trucks rolled through narrow streets. Doors were breached. Warehouses flooded with tactical teams. Inside, agents found what no one had expected. Not drugs, not cash, machines. Rows of 3-dimensional printers, racks of lithium power cells, blueprints for miniature unmanned submarines, disposable vessels built to ferry payloads across international waters undetected. Every room told the same story: industrial scale, military discipline, corporate funding. This wasn't a cartel hiding in jungles. It was an organization that thought like an army and moved like a multinational corporation. Inside one compound, agents uncovered something even darker. A server room, air-conditioned, sealed, running 24/7. When cyber forensics cracked the encrypted drives, they found digital ledgers listing transactions across Macau, Dubai, and Hong Kong. Millions of dollars laundered through shell companies tied to offshore logistics firms. At CIA headquarters in Langley, analysts followed the money trail. Each wire transfer led deeper into financial corridors protected by diplomatic immunity. And behind the numbers, one signature kept appearing: Colonel Rafael Ortega, a Venezuelan intelligence officer under U.S. sanctions since 2023. It was the connection no one wanted to see. State protection, foreign logistics, Chinese technology, all converging to sustain a $10 billion narcotics empire designed not just to make money, but to destabilize the Western Hemisphere. As raids continued throughout the day, more names surfaced. Engineers with dual passports, technicians.
The war room, when crime becomes strategy. That afternoon, the National Security Council convened in Washington. Inside the Situation Room, screens glowed with tactical data. Maps of the Caribbean filled the wall, red dots marking every confirmed node of Project Azure Reef. The DEA director briefed first. 6 vessels neutralized, over 200 chemical drums secured. We believe we've disrupted a global manufacturing chain that was operating with near impunity. Then, Admiral Kingsley from Pacific Command took the floor. The president leaned forward. "Admiral, what exactly are we dealing with here?" Kingsley's response was blunt. "With respect, sir, this wasn't a drug convoy. This was logistics warfare. Someone's testing how far we'll let them go before we respond with force." The room fell silent. For the first time, narcotics trafficking was being mapped like a military campaign, with zones, assets, redundancy systems, and rapid replacement capabilities. The entire network mirrored state-level supply chains, not criminal improvisation. A CIA analyst advanced a briefing slide. Photos appeared: carbon fiber hulls, modular reactors, composite fuel lines, all recovered from the wrecked vessels. Each component was marked with manufacturer codes from sanctioned Chinese corporations. Each shipment had been routed through Venezuelan customs, stamped and approved as marine research equipment. The evidence was undeniable. Venezuela was acting as a proxy, channeling foreign materials and funding into cartel infrastructure, transforming organized crime into a geopolitical weapon aimed directly at American communities. At Quantico, forensic chemists delivered their final assessment. Traces of military-grade stabilizers and lithium polymer compounds matched restricted industrial formulas. These chemicals weren't made in jungle labs. They came from state-licensed facilities with advanced capabilities. Within hours, analysts pieced together the larger picture. The cartel's blue current route wasn't just about trafficking narcotics, it was about influence, saturating American communities with synthetic drugs, draining billions through money laundering networks, and funneling profits into foreign black budgets. "This is hybrid warfare," one intelligence officer said quietly, staring at the data. "It looks like crime, but it acts like strategy." Justice on the horizon. Meanwhile, in Cartagena, Colombian forces escorted high-value detainees under armored convoy. Among them was Luis Marquez Rojas, heir to the family that had once controlled the Gulf drug corridors. For years he'd hidden behind philanthropy and offshore banks, untouchable and invisible. Now, handcuffed and silent, he stared out at the sea where his empire had burned. At the same time, US Navy divers recovered black boxes from the sunken ships. Inside were encrypted hard drives containing navigation data, communication logs, and digital receipts linking shipments to a logistics firm registered in Macau. Every file pointed to the same pattern: structured financing, state assistance, coordinated protection. The Pentagon's final assessment landed on the president's desk that evening. The report was brutally clear. The Marquez-Rojas network represents an evolution of narcotics trafficking into hybridized conflict. Their operations rely on state-sponsored technology, commercial front companies, and military-grade engineering. The objective appears not only economic but destabilizing, targeting the United States through addiction, corruption, and geopolitical influence. The message was unmistakable. The era of simple narcotics cartels was over. What America had confronted in the Caribbean wasn't just organized crime. It was an industrial empire, sanctioned, shielded, and strategic. The New War. Back aboard the USS Hamilton, Commander Spencer received an encrypted transmission from Washington. Operation Blue Current had officially transitioned to Operation Red Current. Authorization for continued interdictions, cyber strikes, and financial sanctions across multiple jurisdictions. As night fell again, the cutter steamed slowly through calm waters. The fires were out, the horizon dark once more, but the war had fundamentally shifted. Spencer stood on deck, eyes fixed on the stars above the Black Sea. This started with a shipment, but it ends with a message. The XO nodded, that America will not fight shadows, but the hands that cast them. In that moment, under the Caribbean sky, the battle lines of a new kind of war had been drawn. Not just between law and crime, but between order and chaos, between sovereignty and subversion. And somewhere beyond the horizon, in the quiet offices of foreign capitals, someone was already calculating their next move. Because when one empire falls, another begins to rise. Dawn after the storm. By sunrise, the Caribbean was silent again. The smoke had thinned. The sea, once burning with fire and fuel, now mirrored the rising sun. On the horizon, the silhouette of the USS Hamilton moved through a field of debris, calm, steady, unshaken. Below deck, DEA agents cataloged the evidence: chemical drums, digital ledgers, fragments of composite hulls stamped with foreign serials. In total, over $10 billion in narcotics and equipment seized or destroyed. 27 arrests, 4 high-value detainees. The largest maritime drug seizure in American history. In Washington, headlines spoke of victory, but inside the Pentagon the tone was different, quieter, heavier, because what they had uncovered was more than a criminal network. It was an industrial empire, sanctioned, shielded, and strategic. Hybrid warfare fought not with missiles, but with markets, not with armies, but with addiction. And for the first time, America had struck back, not as a victim, but as a nation reclaiming control of its own seas. At Quantico, analysts reviewed the data one final time. One of them whispered the truth everyone understood. The next war may not begin with soldiers, it may begin with cargo. Out at sea, Commander Spencer watched the American flag ripple in the wind. He had seen the cost, the fire, the loss, the endless cycle, but he also knew what it meant to fight for order in a world that seemed to slip toward chaos. He turned to his crew, his voice carrying across the deck. Remember this night, because justice doesn't rest, it sails. The engines hummed, the horizon glowed gold, and the message was clear. When America acts, there is no safe harbor for those who poison its people. The sea remembers, the mission continues, because when America is threatened, justice sails with the tide, and there is no way out.